Members, please rise. The Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor. City of Adelaide Council meeting on Tuesday, the 23rd of May 2023. The Lord Mayor is in the chair. Please note this council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia.
Good evening. Council acknowledges that we're meeting on traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respects to their cultural heritage, elders past and present. We recognise their beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. And we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations people who are present today. The Council also acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site for Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage. I will now invite members to have a moment of contemplation about the gravity and implications of our decision-making this evening. I invite members to read the prayer as printed or reflect in a manner appropriate to their beliefs on these issues. Thank you. I now ask all present to stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives in defence of their country at sea, on land and in the air. Thank you, members. Please be seated. This evening we have apologies from Councillor Lee, but everyone else is in the chamber. Could I ask that someone move that the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 9th of May be taken as read and confirmed as an accurate record? Moved by Councillor Abrahimzadeh and seconded by Councillor Giles. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. This evening we have no deputations and we have no petitions. The evening's reports from committee will be quite complicated, so we'll move them serially through the items, and in some of the cases we may be able to move some matters en bloc if members are happy with that process. So the first part is 9.1, that's the Audit and Risk Committee report. Met on the 10th of May. So would somebody move both of those items unless there's dissent? Moved by Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Snape. Is there any debate on those matters? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you, members. 9.2 is the Infrastructure and Public Works Committee. There are only 2 items, one the private road off Eliza Street and the other the e-scooter trial. Councillor Ho?
Yeah, normally I have an amendment to move in item 2, recommendation 2. Just a very small word to make the, requesting a final extension to the e-scooter trial for a further of 10 months until the 30th of April 2024. Just an additional word of final.
A final trial, yes.
Yep.
Is that
and
seconded?
I look for a seconder.
Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
All right.
Just a moment. Councillor Ho can speak.
Colleagues, as I mentioned in our committee meeting last week, it is quite disappointing that we are considering another 10 months extension for the e-scooter trial. Sure, e-scooters offer a certain convenience in transportation, but let's not turn a blind eye on the risk they bring into our community. Take a stroll all around the city, and you will notice over half of the e-scooter riders are not using them as intended to. No helmets, 2 or even 3 riders on the same e-scooters, and kids who are too young to legally operate them. These are everyday signs, and they're concerning. We can't forget the accidents report we have seen. People getting hit by e-scooters, and with no insurance in place, that everybody ends up to be a victim at the end of the day. And let's face it, e-scooters are popular. I like it personally, and that's why I gave my full support over the last 4 years. However, it doesn't mean that we should let the clear gaps in laws and regulations slide. There are still many key questions have not been answered. Should e-scooters be allowed on footpaths? What's their limited speed? And whether or not insurance should be mandatory. So here is my plea to all of you. Let's extend the e-scooter license for just one last 10 months. If in this period the state government can come up with legislations to properly manage and regulate the e-scooters, then it is the time we put our foot down and refuse further extensions. This will effectively end the e-scooter trial. With this step, we are giving our community the protection it deserves while also setting a clear deadline for the state government to act. It is the time we prioritize the safety of our community and make sure that laws and regulations for e-scooters are clearly defined and enforceable. Could you please support the amendment? Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I actually have an amendment to point 2 as well, which I'd like to move. I'll take it as read, having been handed to the administration.
Thank you.
I seek a seconder.
So did you colour in final? So this is, can I ask Councillor Ho if he's happy to incorporate these changes, because it actually gives direction to part 2. Part 2 currently says the Lord Mayor should write in the consultation process, and I had it changed to when there was a clear direction. We have not yet had a clear direction.
Lord Mayor, I'm looking at this that Councillor Adelaide actually want to see the e-scooters to be offered on the footpaths, which are completely against it. I can't.
I think he wants policing. He wants increased policing and enforcement and compliance, and a scheme to deal with the insurance matters that you spoke of. Yes. Can I ask Councillor Elliott to speak to this so we know what his amendment would be? And it would be seconded by Councillor Snape if it were.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to the seconder. So this has been put together based on the feedback that came out of the committee discussion at the last Infrastructure and Public Works Committee. This addresses many of the issues that were raised by Councillor Ho based on the councillor discussion at that time as well, and the responses provided by administration, which I do thank them for providing. I think it's trickier with the inclusion of the word final, because we don't know how long this the legislative review will take, and it can leave some really awkward gaps if our process ends before theirs has also ended. But I think this gives a lot more direction to what the communication from Council through the Lord Mayor will be to the State Government regarding our concerns, and provide a much more streamlined approach for our engagement in that way.
So can I just ask if Councillor Ho is happy?
Not quite, Lord Mayor, and I explained why. Because the reason why I use the word final is very much set a deadline, clear deadline for the state government to act. Because no matter what we do here, we are unable to have this device to have insurance in place. Let's say with no insurance in place, everybody get involved in the accident will end up to be a victim, and that is the biggest problem I have.
I'm not deleting final.
So I understand that Councillor Ho does. Councillor Ho does. Are you happy to have it incorporated?
Yes, because I thought like to delete the word
Final.
final.
Okay. I had not expected this to be moved tonight, and I'd written a personal submission, which is along the lines that you've got, but we'll embellish it and improve it with your advice. So is there any other comment on this? Because otherwise I'll put it to the vote.
Yeah, look, Lord Mayor, I wish to place on record my decision to not support this in any way. I believed on the last occasion we were asked to support an extension, it would be the final occasion. In fact, I've been thinking we've had the final trial for almost 5 years now. It is, as I think I've remarked before, the longest trial in history. We know the matters which are placed before us for consideration. We know that there's not controlled use of the devices on footpaths, either for parking or for transport. We know also that there's a need for increased policing. We know also that there is no support for victims. And indeed today I had a phone call from a ratepayer who was injured by a scooter as she was attempting to board a bus outside Parliament House, strangely, how apt, and suffered a broken arm and sought from the scooter company some assistance with medical costs, which are ongoing. And the scooter company declined to do so without witness statements and a photograph of the scooter in question. They were unable to be provided. She approached the council. The council responded, talked to the scooter company, and so it goes for everybody who's had an incident involving scooters. The fact is, we are, as a council, agreeing to provide a licence to these operators in an environment in which there are little or no precautions that would protect pedestrians, much less riders, and furthermore, there is no adequate insurance, as I have been told by ratepayers who complain they cannot get the support they need. In those circumstances, in all conscience, I can't do anything other than oppose this. It is one more extension, and I hasten to add, it's not going to be the last.
So I'll let Councillor Snape speak as he seconded the amendment. I think we should take this in two parts because I think that some people might want final and some people might want the complaints about the scheme. Would that be acceptable to the council? In that case, Councillor Snape.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I actually share many of the concerns mentioned previously, including by the Deputy Lord Mayor. But I think the amendment that Councillor Elliott has put forward, and I welcome his contribution to this particular item, covers a lot of my concerns. I am very supportive of the e-scooters, and I would like to see them safely operating in our city. And right now we are struggling with that. But we know why we're struggling with that. We're struggling because the technology, which is there, which is available in the eastern states, cannot currently legally be put onto the scooters at present, and we're simply waiting for the state government to play catch-up. My concern is that if we were to get rid of the e-scooters entirely, even once this legislation has gone through, it'll be a lot harder to bring back the e-scooters in a safe way. Well, bring them back at all, I should say. And therefore, I'm asking my fellow councillors here to hold the course. Hopefully this is the final 10-month trial, because in 10 months from now we can actually have a safe environment, safe legislation, safe usage, which includes, if they are on pavements, perhaps going a lot slower, significantly slower, if there is adequate separated cycle paths. That would be another option the city could support down the line as well. There are many different things, there are many different ways we can make this safer, and I will certainly be putting my 10 cents into the state government's report. But until we're at that point, 10 months I think is a fair ask, and let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
So can I ask Councillor Elliott just to
I actually reserve my right. I think I've made my views quite clear in this space and in committee meeting. Thank you.
I actually like to sum up long format. I mean, in terms, I share the same thoughts like Councillor Martin. I couldn't remember in this room how many times I have to put on my hand to support extension after extension, and that's why I said this will be my last 10 months. You better get the job done, and that is the word that I like to seek from all the members and provide the feedbacks to the communities that in another 10 months that this council will not support any more extensions if the state government are unable to have the right laws and regulation in place. And to answer Councillor Snape's comments, I mean, look, even at the end of the day, once we have all the correct laws and regulations in place, and therefore personal owned e-scooters will be able to get on the public space, public road. All right. So in this case, as long as it is regulated, then we might not need the e-scooter operator to provide those e-scooters. You can actually buy it in good guise, right? As simple as that. So I still like to urge members to support the amendment I have together with Councillor Ailey's amendment on the screen, that let's give them the final chance, and therefore we can share this information with our community, especially those who seriously concern their safety when they're walking on our footpath. Thank you.
So to just give people the capacity to vote against parts of this, we'll move the amendments to Part 2. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. That then becomes the... Sorry, I apologise, not unanimously. That then becomes the motion, but I'll take the motion in two parts. So we'll have Part 1, the final extension. All those in favour? Again, and that's against, one vote against, and that then becomes the motion. All those in favour? That's against, that's carried. Thank you, members. So have we just got item 1?
Sorry, Lord Mayor, is this supposed to be we have moved the amendment? Do we need to move the whole thing again?
Yes, we've now moved the e-scooter part, but we're now going to Eliza Street. Excuse me, this is not 9.3. We're not there yet. We're still on infrastructure. We're still on 9.2. We didn't move Eliza Street. That's right. Could we now move the private road adjacent to Eliza Street? Moved by Councillor Snape, seconded by Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Is there any debate about that? If not, all those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to item 9.3, which is City Finance and Governance Committee. There are 6 parts to this motion. I think it would be fair to say that some of the items are non-contentious and will be supported. What I might do is ask if anyone would like to reserve any of the items, from starting with item 1, and those that are not reserved will vote en bloc on, if that's acceptable to the chamber. So would people like to debate number 1? Item 1? 4.1. Yes. 4.1? It's actually recommendation 1. Is that reserved? No, I'm just seeing if we're just seeing who wants to reserve them. I can't hear you.
Normally everyone can hear me. How are we doing this? Like, can't we have a mover?
So we can have voting on block. If you'd like me to select the ones we can vote on block, item 4 to 6, I think, would be non-contentious. Recommendations 4 to 6. 4.2 to 4.6. No, the item numbers are recommendation 4, recommendation 5, recommendation 6. I'm happy to explain what they are. Item 4 is Council Member Behavioural Support Policy. Recommendation 5 is Employee Behavioural Standards, and Recommendation 6 is Sister City Proposals. Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Noon. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. So we have now got down to the last 4 items, and I think it might be appropriate to look at the recommendation 2, which is the business update, and then we'll leave the review of fees and charges to the end of the item. So recommendation 2, quarter 3 business update. Moved by
I'll speak to it.
Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Siebentritt.
I'd like to speak to it.
Please do.
I'm very glad to see this is the Q3 business update.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm very glad to see that the allocation for the Crows is now back into this motion. I think that this council didn't understand what the proposal was. So previously we removed $20,000 because the Crows were an evil corporation. And I think now perhaps it's better understood that the Adelaide Crows Foundation is a charitable organisation that promotes reconciliation activities. I am very disappointed at the time that, sometimes I might have every now and again have a good idea that when matters like this actually get referred back to committee so that council can actually understand what it is. I think our community was incredibly disappointed that on the night we removed activities for reconciliation and then supported the voice. And that, I think, sent an incredibly confused message to our community. So I'm very thankful for Aman for putting back the $20,000 for the Adelaide Crows Foundation through the committee to this chamber. And I suggest perhaps, maybe, I know I'm not I might be a person non grata, but every now and again I might say something smart. So I'm very glad to see that this council now understands the difference between evil corporations and charitable organisations, and I'm glad that this reconciliation event will go ahead. Thank you.
I think that we have the capacity to descend into rancour if we're not careful. So, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Does the seconder wish to speak first, Lord Mayor?
Lord Mayor, just very briefly, I'm happy to support this. I think I have a slightly different recollection of the discussion than Councillor Davis, though, which is that it's important that councillors debate the matters that are going for community grants or grants in general. And the thing that I took away from it is that we need to look at our process in general around grants so that we don't end up in a situation where we're having to have a debate here in the council chamber that's much better had at one of our committees. And therefore, I think this hopefully will be an important trigger for reviewing how we actually allocate grants.
So, Deputy Lord Mayor, did you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. And look, I echo the comments of Councillor Siebentritt. I don't remember that conversation, nor do I recall any reference to any evil empire or evil corporation. And I note that the decision of Council stood, that is, the grants process ensured that included in that list was the End Period Poverty Project, which remains, in my mind, an important contribution of this council to issues related to women's health. I just do want to observe, however, distinct from the matter concerning item 5, the incredible lag, and Lord Mayor, I am just lamenting this, not seeking to do otherwise, that is evident at point 4. That is that our major projects, in fact our projects generally, although they lag in QF3, seem to be lagging a lot. And I do hope that we can manage to expend most of those funds on those projects in the remaining period of the year open to us. And perhaps I could ask the administration to provide some advice to the council on what it can do to assist in the execution of the projects that it approves as part of its budget, but which we aren't able to deliver because of, I understand, all of those external influences, but what we might do to assist the administration.
Could we respond to that request?
Thank you, through the presiding member. I'll just make a couple of comments and then I'm sure Mr McCready will have some things to add. So firstly, just to be clear, our renewal component of our capital budget is on track to be spent by the end of the financial year, and that's incredibly important, and that's been the huge focus over the last few years to make sure that our renewal funding is spent appropriately throughout the financial year. In relation to major projects, that does tend to carry over from year to year, which is why we made a commitment to the previous council to have a 3-year capital rolling programme so that we can better plan, design and deliver major projects over multiple years. Mr McCready probably has some additional thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Through you, Lord Mayor, just in addition, some of the measures that we're looking at is where we can bundle contracts together so we can go out to the market, because at the minute it is a very competitive market and there's a lot of contracts out there. The other ones are, and naturally we're dealing with a matter later on tonight called Rymel Park, is where Council wishes us to bring things back in. It's really trying to get out to market quicker and to get those projects moving, which is really, really important to us. I did highlight also in regards to some of the projects that there is a timing issue which is important, where we're always looking to seek to maximise the value of the contract. So sometimes when we go out, it's probably not the right time because we're paying a premium. So that's some of the issues that we're facing, and we're tackling them and we're moving them through. But the ones that are listed in regards to carry forwards are big contracts where we've got commitments and or contracts already in place, so it will be spent.
No, that's fine, Lord Mayor.
Oh, never, Your Worship. I would like to say that I think that due to overwhelming pressure from our community, that this has been reinstated. I think, Councillor Stephen-Tritt, you make a good point. We make a decision in committee and it comes through, and it's not the opportunity for the chair in that circumstance to substitute new things which the council doesn't understand. I think far better, if we do want to make significant amendments like that, that we send them through and those motions be sent through prior to council meetings so that councillors can be well informed and we're not making policy on the run. So I do think that we should listen to our committees, if we agree with them, before confusing the issue. And I'm glad that this issue has been rectified, and I think that the community owes a voice of thanks to Arman Abrahinzadeh for bringing this funding back in.
So, recommendation 2 then. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. Now, just on time, we're moving into contracts. So, do we have a view about the awarding 2 contracts? Recommendation 3. Would someone move the awarding of those 2 contracts? Councillor Abrahinzadeh, seconded by Councillor Ho. Are you speaking against?
Yes, happy to speak to this. I'm very glad to say that...
Just a moment. Could you sit down? Councillor Abrahinzadeh, would you like to... Thank you.
There we go. I'm very glad to see that the Rymel Park Lake renewal has actually now gone ahead and the contract has been awarded after months of needless delays in this project to ask questions which were easily answered and easily available. I think that this council needs to be confident in its approach, and we shouldn't be delaying major projects like this. And I've spoke previously on this issue about the reasons for those delays, and I think our Deputy Lord Mayor knows the criticisms that I have surrounding that. We as a council need to be confident about our vision for the City of Adelaide, and needless delays only add to the cost and further scheduling issues that it has happened with Rymel Park. So I'm very pleased to see that this project has finally given the green light.
I believe the scheduling issues have been related to major events and are not the impact entirely of the council.
Oh, look, Lord Mayor, I just wanted to thank the councillor for his contribution, and I'm looking forward to a positive one later in the meeting. Look, the issues surrounding this were clear enough, and it is, and the administration has noted, I'm grateful, that this project has been accompanied by a number of requests for funding rather than a bundled request. That's bundled, not bungled. a bundled request would have enabled all of the councillors to see the exact expenditure on this project and then to make an informed decision about whether it wanted to spend what will amount to more than $10 million in the past year on this project. I don't share Councillor Davis's enthusiasm for this, though I do hope that it proceeds without delay, and I will be voting against this recommendation, not because I object to the Town Hall facade conservation. That was a measure that should have been carried, but the previous council, by majority in April 2021, voted down those urgent works, which will provide earthquake protection for the Town Hall. I am pleased to see that there. So I will be voting against it, but only in respect of 1.2. I thoroughly endorse 1.1.
Can I request, just for the Deputy Lord Mayor's sake, that the two projects be taken in parts?
I think we can do that. So we will take it as approving the award of contract for the Adelaide Town Hall. Yes, well, the mover and seconder are happy with that. I've forgotten who the mover and seconder is. If you're happy with that, we'll take it in parts. We won't need to sum up again, I think. The first, item 1.1, the Adelaide Town Hall facade conservation. All those in favour? That's carried. Against? None, I think. And part 2, 1.2, the Rymel Park Lake renewal. All those in favour? And against? That's one against. Part 2 authorises CEO or delegate to execute relevant contracts. All those in favour? And against? That's carried. Thank you, members. Now we're going to move back up the agenda to item 1, recommendation 1, which is business plan and budget, fees and charges. And when we have settled that matter, we will move on to the main bulk of the budget, which is in item 9.4. So could I ask if someone would move this motion as it's printed? Moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Siebentrit. These are fees and charges, and I understand there will be several amendments. The item that I have been told that I have a material conflict on is part 4. So while we debate this matter, I will vacate the chair for the taking of that vote. But we can debate it, I think.
Wait, if you have a material conflict of interest, don't you have to leave straight away?
No, but we're not going to have item 4.
Oh, so we're doing everything else except for 4?
Yes.
Apologies. Once again, just for the sake of the process, could we take it all in parts?
Yes, I think we can do that.
Okay.
So we have moved all of them together, haven't we? Yes. They've all been moved, and will the mover and seconder be happy to take it in parts? Yes, they will. Are there any amendments?
Yes.
Councillor Noon. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Ho.
Okay, the amendments are actually on the screen, and for the sake of probably boring a few people because they've heard it before, the reason why that I'm actually proposing an amendment referring to on-street car parking increase is that every survey that has been produced from AEDA and ACMA, Revisitation into the City, has car parking as an issue and visitor deterrent. Not only for ratepayers, however, visitors, where this could be the catalyst for re-decision where they shop. For the $910,000 that I've been advised is the proposed revenue that this will generate, it is not worth the negative publicity that we have already been receiving on this. The perceived messaging is that although we want you to visit the city, we now want you to even pay more, and though We are offering at this stage no real defining point of difference to other destinations except adding car parking fees and even exposure to the elements going from shop to shop. We actually have 8 POIs that have been appointed, which will generate, now I've been advised that this will be in the vicinity of $150K each, which equates to just under $2 million or $1.5 million revenue for this fin budget, which is still substantial. I do acknowledge that CPI increase, that is that what we have actually defined as CPI increase as per Deloitte's is, I think it was 4.3 or whatever, but we are looking at 5% across all fees, including on-street parking, is acceptable and defendable. So I am actually suggesting that we apply CPI across the board to car parking fees and not this ridiculous increase on Saturday mornings, which this is when we want people to actually come into our city. I think it actually sends out a really, really bad message. The reasons why I'm proposing an amendment referring to outdoor dining is the city is still at 20 to 30% less occupied during the week since COVID, and due to working from home options, this will not change in the short term. So the situation is potentially worse for these restaurants and cafe owners that when we made the decision back in 2018 to cease the fees. To me, it's just not a good business decision. However, I would really like to see this reviewed and investigated, because I actually believe there's equity issues around this. And I would like to actually work with the City of Adelaide restaurateurs and cafe owners and to also give them a decent notice on reintroduction of fees, whatever that model looks like at the time. Thank you.
Yes, Lord Mayor, I'd like to speak to support this amendment, and indeed I'd like to provide my full support on this amendment, especially these two items here. Firstly, let me talk about the outdoor dining fee. In the last meeting I have with the CEO to talk about the feedbacks I get from my community from 2 different Main Streets. The traders on one Main Street, they don't mind the outdoor dining fee, all right? They think if there's something the council can do to maintain the street hygiene, then they are all for it. However, there were the traders on another Main Street have very strong pushback. Let's put because look, some people say only a couple $100 or even $1,000 or $2 per year as the outdoor dining fee will not change the nature of the business. And if a business owner are unable to to deal with the additional $1,000 or $2,000 charges, they should not run the business. I don't believe this is the right comments we should make. I mean, quite often when you see that the pressures on each business build up day by day, I don't want to see this to be the last straw on the camel and let them to make the decision to shut down the business. In terms of the car park, put it this way. My thoughts to think, well, increased from $2.60 to $5, seriously, not a lot. Not a lot. It is more about the perception. It is more about the negative message we send to the community. Because members, let's face it, let's live in reality, all right? People in Adelaide are still rely on cars. Not everyone, but still majority of the people rely on cars to go to work, to come to shop, they have a family to feed. They need to use the car to get into our city, all right? Every dollar if they have the perception that we are not welcoming them by increasing the car parking fee, we actually discourage people coming to the city to shop around, which will have another hit on our local community here. So I urge members, please consider this amendment and let's support it. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there's anyone who wants to speak against that motion. Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I do wish to speak opposed to these amendments. And I think to talk about the city in a way that's so bleak and negative that we don't have a point of difference aside from offering car parking fees is a very pessimistic way of looking at what the offering that we do actually have is. I think our point of difference is our strong cultural institutions, our central markets, our very small businesses that provide a very, very vibrant offering. And to say that the only thing that we're offering different compared to Westfield out in West Lakes is that we charge for parking, I think is a completely misleading statement. And when it comes down to it, people will always complain about parking fees. It's a very frustrating thing to have to deal with. I'm very thankful that I made the decision not to use a car several years ago. And funnily enough, when you get rid of a car, life doesn't collapse around you, and you actually still find a way to collect your groceries and support your family. In fact, 1 in 10 families across metropolitan Adelaide don't have access to a car, and 1 in 3 of our households in the city don't have a car either. So the idea that people can't support their families or visit the city without one is also a misleading statement. I would like to point out that today in the Advertiser it was reported that over the last 12 months there's been an increasing trend of businesses relocating to the city. In fact, RAA itself, many of whose employees actually ride and catch public transport to work and promote active and public transport, relocating into the CBD. That comes on a wave of other businesses relocating in from the suburbs because of our competitive advantages. That's going to bring with them the workers and trade, and that trend is expected to increase over the remainder of this year. Therefore, I think that there's a good rationale for maintaining or reinstating gradually the outdoor dining fees. The idea that we're in a state of economic collapse imminently, I think, is again misleading. There's been a lot of very misleading statements thrown around our parking fees. I also just kind of finish on the point that I think it's an irresponsible move for our budget to be making policy in response to media articles. And there has been some splashback on some of these issues, but I don't think it's anywhere near as serious as people are making it out to be. It's quite minor, and as I said, people will always have an issue with increases to parking. 1 or 2 articles in the Advertiser here and there, or online, or on a radio segment is to be expected, and I think that's part of the normal discourse and the expected amount of complaints that we would receive. I think these are perfectly reasonable measures, and I encourage my colleagues to support me in opposing these amendments.
Councillor Davis, and then Councillor Snape, then Councillor Siebendrup.
I think get rid of your car is probably not an option for many South Australians, and it's certainly not an option for businesses who are trying to attract business from around South Australia, particularly rural and regional South Australia, to come into the city and do their major shop for clothes and things like that, and then go back out to regional South Australia. Look, car parking is absolutely essential for business survival here in the Adelaide City Council, and we are sending a message, or the committee's proposal was to send a message to South Australians that the City of Adelaide doesn't want you here, that we are closed for business, please get out. And I think that is the major thing. And you talk about it's a nothing fee. It's heaps of money. It's heaps of money. $700,000, I think, is what we heard in the committee as an estimate for some of these fees and charges to go forward. And I simply don't think that our communities are going to accept an increase far above CPI of almost a doubling to lock out people from coming into the city. Now, our businesses pay council rates. If you hamper their ability to have customers, their rates go down. Their income goes down. These things are all connected because the value of a business and the amount of rent that they pay are connected to the amount of council rates that we have. What this is, and I think that the way that this budget was proposed through the committee by this council, is a multiple-pronged attack on businesses. And car parking and reducing people coming into the city is just one of those attacks. Now, the Premier of South Australia is doing everything he can possibly do to promote our city, to bring people in through Live Golf, Adelaide 500, the Gather Round, things like that, and the City of Adelaide Council is doing the complete opposite. And we've seen what happens when councils or Westfield Shopping Centre try and restrict business and try and exclude people from actually accessing those facilities to make a couple of extra bucks. What they do is the Premier steps in and squashes it, and I totally agree with him on that point. Now, in terms of outdoor dining, again, it's just a double taxation. You're taxing people for increasing the profitability of their restaurants and their cafes. Their rates that they pay are based on the annual value method, which determines how much rent that they pay. And those outdoor dining fees, or the ability to have outdoor dining, is actually a component of that. Get rid of outdoor dining and you also reduce the council rates. We are trying to encourage people to celebrate Adelaide. There is huge investment. We have an entire Adelaide economic development arm that we are trying to get people here into the city, and some councillors are proposing that we lock them out. I absolutely don't support an increase. I support the amendment to cap increased car parking to CPI, and I think that our businesses will thank us for it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I always look forward to Councillor Davies' contributions. There's always a few good sound bites in there for the media. I have a lot of respect for Councillor Noon, and we probably agree on 90, 98, probably more % of things most of the time. But look, this council is a fresh council. From what I've seen so far, it is a pretty responsible council, especially in my personal opinion, after 4 years of mismanagement. And we can't blame COVID for cancelling of fees and the freezing of rates prior to COVID. But yes, I just feel there's a lot. This is a chance to change course. We don't want to have to increase fees and the like just for the sake of it. It's only because we want to do the right thing by the city. We want to fix our footpaths. We want to bring valuable community works back to the public realm to benefit our local neighbourhoods, to benefit our business districts, our main streets. All this costs money, and because of 4 years of mismanagement, this council is not in a good place financially. So we have to step up. We have to do the right thing. We have to make the difficult decisions. And I feel we've been very blessed by good leadership from the chair and the Lord Mayor, Dr. Jane Lomax-Smith, in this matter, and from advice taken from the administration. And I think this is the right way to go. So it's going to be a tough budget, but the hope is that the next 3 budgets will be a lot easier because of it. And rather, this has been a lot easier on our ratepayers if we hadn't held back for so long. The impact wouldn't have been as bad this time around. So we've got to do the right thing because previous council didn't. We can't keep kicking the can down the street. And we also can't run this city via media and social media responses. We can't put out a committee discussion. We can't come to a conclusion and then have a backlash and then change our entire philosophy and our entire position every single time just because it's a difficult position to take. We have to have a bit of backbone, a bit of spirit. And I think this budget, without the amendment, is the right thing to do. Being that said, I completely respect Councillor Noon. I know you're coming from the right place, and I know you'll continue to be a fantastic champion for your community, and I always welcome your voice in any debate that we have. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I will not support the amendment.
So can I ask if Councillor Stevendrit, sorry, you seconded the motion, the original motion?
Well,
so you
I
were
actually wanted to
speaking
speak against the amendment.
Yep, thank you.
I want to speak against the amendment, but reflect on the reasons why, which may not be the same for all other councillors, but I just wanted to share that. So, personally, I found the budget development process to be a challenging one, and obviously sitting in there as chair of the Finance and Governance Committee, have sought to look at how we bring together various views. As I said to a councillor recently, if I was to use a sporting analogy, I'm someone who likes to play the ball and not the person. That's the way I go about things. And so I thank everyone for their contributions, for the people who perhaps disagree with me and all those, as well as people who think I'm aligned with. The fundamental thing I've walked away with from every single discussion we've had with the budget in the last 6 months is we are in a process of budget repair. Is we need to do what most households, or every household needs to do, or any organisation does, which is how do we balance our revenue and our expenses. That's our primary objective as a group of decision makers here in the City of Adelaide. And so when I look at the budget that we're presented, and which we've spent a lot of time on working our way through, is we need to ensure that we have an operating surplus in order to be able to service our debt. We've just heard us this at our last Finance and Governance Committee meeting. This is a very carefully structured budget, is my observation. And there are a number of impacts potentially on traders and on residents that have already been removed from this budget. What we see is the outcome of quite a deliberate and extensive process. One of my observations is that a challenge that we all face is how do we keep pace? How does our investment keep pace with the expectations of residents and traders back into the infrastructure and the services that we as a group of decision makers need to sign off on? And we need to look at how we keep pace with that. And we need to look at how we keep pace with that in an environment where, as Councillor Noon and I were discussing only earlier on, is that CPI is even more than what we've been told in reports. I think it's heading above 7%. So that's an environment in which we're doing it. And we also note that we need to ensure that our employees, we want the City of Adelaide to be the best place of work. We need to ensure that our employee costs are rising, as is now outlined in the budget. So I also note that the majority of changes, or many of the changes here, are taking us back to a return to pre-COVID conditions. And in terms of, we will eventually get onto valuations, but they reflect back in recognising current valuations. So the question I ask myself in getting here tonight is not about how do we do this for traders, or how do we do this for residents, or how do we do this for people visiting the city. The challenge before us tonight is how do we strike the balance? It's a difficult decision, but that's a decision we need to make. And so when I'm not supporting the amendments, for me this is more about striking the balance and having a budget that we can go out and sit down and have the hard conversations with. I know I'll be having it, and I know a number of you will be, fronting up to traders, fronting up to residents and having that hard conversation. And so that's why I'm not supporting the amendment, because I do want us to get a budget that I believe does involve budget repair and something we can get out and have those conversations with out in our community.
I will ask Councillor Noon if she'd like to I apologise.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I think we've substantiated that I do not have a conflict in regards to this matter as it affects the broader of the range of
Thank
the
you,
city.
that's noted.
Thank you. I like to commend David Elliott, actually, and the reason why I like to commend him is that he sticks by his principles. And flip-flopping on issues that we have discussed and debated on, and it's just not within my. It doesn't fit with me, because we've gone from. I've talked against increasing the outdoor dining fees. However, no one has asked me what would be the approach that we should take. I feel that there is an election coming, possibly, maybe in the 30th of June, and this looks great for possibility. I'm not saying that there will be, but there's a possibility of an election, maybe a by-election coming up, and this looks like we're buying back voters. This is what that looks like to me, because I have been looking at the voters, at the councillors, and everyone has talked about introducing outdoor dining fees. I am the only one that has said that I do not agree with it. I did not vote against. I voted against it at committee. So the actual thing is that the fact of the matter is, if you speak to restaurateurs and hospitality vendors, is that what they would like is more of a measured approach. They would like a gradual approach. They don't want things for free. They're not asking things for free. But what they're saying is that now is not time to come in with a big hit. And that's what we were doing initially. Now what we're saying, the big hit's coming in 24-25. So either way, you're going to get it all together. You're going to reintroduce it in the next financial year. So basically what you're saying, we're warning you that the big hit is coming. So I really cannot accept this amendment. I'm not here for someone else's campaign. And to top it all off, Lord Mayor, I mean, to say that we have to be responsible, yes, absolutely we have to be responsible. We have to be responsible and make sure that we always read a budget. As Councillor Snape has said, this is the first time he's actually taken an active role in participating in the budget. The budget is the most important aspect of our job. It's not something to dismiss. And what I have not liked about this process is that, unfortunately, Councillor Sibbentrop, I don't agree with you. We have not been working on it for the last 6 months. I would like some more time, if possible.
I'll move those extensions.
We have not been working on it the last 6 months. We only received this document, which did not look like anything that we thought it would look like, on Wednesday morning. We were set to make a decision on the business plan and budget and the committee on Thursday. We had amendments that which we will get to talk about in the business plan and budget. And so I don't feel that this process is ready to go out. This, all in total, is ready to go out for consultation. I actually would rather see it defer for at least another week. We have until the August the 15th, actually, legislatively, to have this in by. I would like to actually work on something more substantial rather than me being voting for someone for their election campaign.
I don't think that we're voting about an election campaign. I think we have to take this on the face of events, and I think this is people deciding what is best for our community. So there is no need to actually be assertive in that way. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Oh, just a clarification, Lord Mayor. I'm a bit confused. Is Councillor Couros voting for or against the amendment?
She's foreshadowing against and deferral. Councillor
Lord Mayor, can I just ask a quick question? Are points 2 and point 3 the only ones that have changed here? Yep.
I think the item 3 needs some clarification. Perhaps when Councillor Noon sums up, she could explain how we exempt increases and have a 5% CPI added. Is that the question? Thank you. Councillor Noon, would you like to sum up and just clarify that matter?
First, I want to say that I'm not going to be dragged down to Councillor Couros' level by commenting on some of the accusations and just those dreadful comments that she made, insinuating that I'm doing this for an election that I don't actually think is ever going to happen anyway. That was just way beyond very political, and I just find that quite insulting, actually, to tell you the truth. And I think most of the ratepayers would actually listen to that and think that was pretty below the belt. I am here because I have put this amendment up because I have been listening to the ratepayers. I was listening to the ratepayers before I was elected, and this is like number 1, number 2, number 3 issue is actual car parking issues. And if you actually read the science behind it is there, all the surveys, even the latest market surveys. I sit on the ACMA board, and basically we got them out last week, and it was just again about car parking. At the end of the day, I actually strongly believe that we are responsible by putting it up CPI across the board. I actually think that that would be a fair way of approaching this. I don't actually agree with any of the proposed rate increases, and I just think that we should apply CPI. Now, CPI could be applied as 7.9 because that's what was reported this week, although that we're looking at a 5% when we're applying CPI. But to me, that sits very comfortably. I just also want to make a comment to Councillor Elliott's comment about the article in the paper today. He was correct in what he was saying, but also the article actually says that the vacancy rate is expected to rise on the back of new supply as well. So at the end of the day, we might be gaining, but because of people coming back into the city, but we're losing because we're putting up a whole lot more developments and stuff like that. So I don't think that that's a very good argument, to tell you the truth. So at the end of the day, I really strongly believe that we are sending out a really bad message to the communities, not only our ratepayers, but to South Australia, by putting up these increases. I'm not actually saying that the City of Adelaide it should be compared to a Westfield, but at the end of the day, that's what people do. That's what I'm hearing. At the end of the day, this is what people are saying. That, can I have another minute like everybody
Councillor,
else does?
I would be grateful if you could just explain how we are exempting parking fees increases and yet applying a CPI of 5%. That's just a confusing matter that Councillor Abrahimzadeh asked.
Okay, in the fees and charges schedule, there's increases all around the shop. We've got 5% here, we've got 18% here, or whatever. What I'm actually saying is that we don't apply any of those. We just apply a flat CPI across the board to all areas.
All fees and charges?
No,
Parking fees go up 5%.
Yeah, full stop.
So this is...
On-street parking fees go up. The CPI that has been suggested, which is 0.7, I think it is, which is the 5%.
I'm sorry, I just need to clarify, because Councillor Abrahimzadeh has raised an issue that is a little confusing. I'm not wishing to prolong your speaking on an unimportant issue, but can we just clarify? On-street parking fees are exempt from an increase in the 23-24 financial year budget. However, 5% CPI will be applied.
Yes, that's per 0.7 below, which is actually applying, which we're saying we're applying 5% across all fees and charges. That's how I read it. Is that correct?
I think we might need some help with this matter, because a motion has to be clear.
I'm happy to help. Can I suggest that you change it so that on-street parking fees, delete are exempt from, and say that on-street car parking fees will increase?
5% CPI.
Yep.
Yeah, across the board. Happy with that.
Budget, by, and get rid of yes, and replace however with by.
Yep.
Could we have by 5% and not have CPI, because CPI may not be 5%?
But we're referring in our reporting to CPI being 5%. You know, we're reporting that as...
Thank you. Through the Chair, just for clarification, we use Deloitte Access, and that it is saying it's 4.1 next financial year. So that may not be where CPI is now, or as a lag indicator for past quarter. The fees and charges have a 4.1% Deloitte Access projected CPI next financial year.
Well,
Councillor, I'm not trying to make this difficult for you, but to try and make sure it's clear for the administration.
Yeah. So if you actually go down to 0.7 below, it talks about CPI Deloitte's being... Yeah. And the base level, that's fine. 5% is what I'm
Okay, so if you're happy with that wording, I apologise for changing it so late in the day. Councillor Ho, are you happy with that clarification? Councillor Noon is not happy. Councillor Kouros is not happy.
Can I just haven't finished.
Councillor Noon is still speaking.
Yes, I am.
I'm sorry to just prolong this, but we have to give you.
And as per the measured approach, when it actually comes to outdoor dining, I think that my recommendation is a measured approach, because what I'm actually saying is that we actually work with the restaurateurs and cafe owners over the next 12 months. We actually work with them. I'm actually saying there will be a fee probably applied, but what that model looks like depends on the review. It depends on working with them. So at the end of the day, I think that I just don't know that comment about big hit. I mean, I'm not suggesting what it's going to be. What I'm suggesting is that we work with them. We actually recognise that there probably will be a fee applied, but what that looks like is dependent on that process. So I think that is a very measured approach. And as per striking a balance, the comment on Councillor Siebentreut, I think I am striking a balance because I'm supporting every other increase when it actually comes to fees, just not these two. Thank you.
I think that Councillor Kouros has lost the opportunity now because this is closing the debate. And if Councillor Ho is happy with those changes, I'll put it to the vote. Well, she has... Sorry?
To talk about the one big hit in the next financial year. That's not how I understand it, though. It's like after this year, you just have to do a review, and this is what we need to do like before the next budget. We can't make any decision for the next budget.
It's foreshadowing what's happening this year. I think that it's clear if a change in policy, it is clear, however, now. So the motion, put this to the vote, which is the amendment as amended by Councillor Noon. All those in...
Sorry, of which one? Sorry.
We're voting on the amendments. So all those in favour of the amendment? And those against? That amendment is lost. Division has been called. The division has been called.
Council members, the division has been called on the amendment. If you would like to stand in voting in favour of the amendment on the changes in red, please do so until your name is called.
Councillor Ho, Councillor Noon and Councillor Davis.
So the amendments now become the motion, and I would ask someone... Sorry, the amendment is lost, so we revert to the original parts 1 to 3, and that has already been moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Siebentritt. So unless there are any other amendments, could I ask, you would like to speak to them, Count? No, we'll put that to the vote, 1 to 3.
Been working with admin and talking about the choice in the central market. It's not in this bit. My apologies. All right, cool.
Sorry, there is a motion before the chair, and you can ask a question, Councillor Ho, if you wish. Okay. So we're now going to consider 1 to 3. Do you wish to speak, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Siebentritt? No. In that case, all those in favour? And against? It's a division called. I'm sorry? Okay. Okay.
No division yet. You need to vote because it was an even tie in relation to that vote.
Okay, I've been told that I should vote before the division's called because it was an even vote. And I'm just explaining the process that we will follow before a division, because it was an equality of votes, because there were 5-5. So may we have the division again?
No, you also,
I'm going to vote for the motion.
You get to explain why, Your Lordship, if you'd like to.
Now we're going to call the division still. And the division has been called with the addition of my vote. Okay, let's start again.
Councillor Elliott, Councillor Siebentritt, Councillor Snape, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Giles and the Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Could we move down the recommendations now and consider parts 5 to 7, excluding 4 again, because I will vacate the chair for item 4. So items 5 to 7 are general fees, charges, commercial business fees, and the general rate of CPI applied. So moved by the Deputy Lord Mayor. Seconded. Yes, yes. So, we happy to put that to the vote? No speaking? You don't wish to speak, Deputy Lord Mayor? No. In that case, all those in favour? All those against? That's an equivalence, again, of votes. So I will vote for it. And a division has been called.
Could all those members in favour please rise and stay standing until your name is called? Councillor Elliott, Councillor Siebentritt, Councillor Snape, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Giles and the Lord Mayor.
A division has been called in favour of the motion. So now I would like to vacate the chair and ask the Deputy Lord Mayor, on the basis that I have a material conflict.
Okay, and it's some guy. Mm-hmm.
As well, and Councillor Siebentritt seconded it, so you can ask if there's anyone that wants to debate the item, or you can just move straight into it.
Okay. Councillors, I've been asked to request anyone who wishes to speak to put their hand up. Does anyone wish to speak to Part 4 of Recommendation 1? Apparently I have moved it.
I have an alternative motion.
Councillor Siebentritt. Does anyone wish to speak to this? Then I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour of Part 4, Recommendation 1? No, that is carried. Unless there's an equivalency of votes. I thought there was an equivalency, yeah. Okay. Thank you. That is carried. May I ask
division?
that the Lord Mayor be invited?
Division. There was a late vote by one of our councillors on the utterance of and motioning of another councillor. So I think for clarity, we should probably get a division.
Councillor, I'm prepared to accept that. A division has been called. Those voting in favour of Part 4, Recommendation 1, please stand until your name is called.
Councillor Elliott, Councillor Noon, Councillor Siebentritt, Councillor Snape and Councillor Giles.
Thank you. Can we ask the Lord Mayor to return?
I have a point of order when the Mayor gets back. I have a point of order.
Excuse me, was there some abusive behaviour?
I have a point of order.
Yes.
One councillor said to another the words F off, and I believe that goes against our code of conduct in the interest of generating successful working relationships between councillors, and I'd like that councillor to stand and apologise for using and telling another councillor to F off.
I think that is under Section 86(6)(a), regarded as disorderly or improper behaviour, and it's not acceptable. So I would ask the councillor who has been named, I believe.
Yes, it was me, and that's because Mary
actually like to make a personal explanation.
Quite derogatory to me, which I'm not going to repeat, and it forced me to say that, and I think that was just really, she's just been very aggravating tonight, and I think that just caused me to say something that I apologise for the language I used, but I tell you what, I don't apologise for the intention and why I said it.
I think that we cannot descend into this kind of behaviour. It's entirely unacceptable. I wasn't in the room, but if it was accurate, then I think
it's only fair that I should have an
Can you just sit down
well?
and stop shouting across the room, because we don't want to become completely out of order. I think that Councillor Noon has given an apology of sorts, but Councillor Couros.
I would also like to apologise to Councillor Noon for taking my little tongue-in-cheek when she was joking with Councillor Davis about her not paying attention to Councillor Snape telling her to get up and vote. She specifically said that I voted with you for outdoor dining, and I, in tongue-in-cheek, said that's all for self-interest. I didn't make any derogatory comments. It was all tongue-in-cheek approach. And if she takes offence to that,
I think the only fair thing to do might be to send you both outside for 5 minutes.
Yes, I think so. But I just think that I would like to clarify I did not state any derogatory comment.
Lord Mayor, apologies.
Do you want a personal explanation as well?
I just want to state for a record that during the time between the Deputy Lord Mayor stepping down from the chair and yourself entering the chamber, Councillors Couros and Davis were very disruptive. I'm not explaining the reaction that the councillor gave, but I'm just saying the behaviour was not good.
I don't think you're helping, Councillor. Sit down. Thank you. I'm very tempted to exclude both of you, but I'm rather reticent to send you both out together, because I think that might make matters worse. So on this occasion, you will both be warned to stop this sort of behaviour, because it's not dignified. I warn you, and if I have any reoccurrence of this, you will both be excluded, and I will bring the full force of Section 86, 6A down on you, because this is unacceptable behaviour. Thank you.
So the point of order in the minutes is upheld? So the point of order in the minutes is upheld?
It was upheld as a complaint, yes. And I've accepted the personal explanation and said that this is a warning and will not be accepted again. I've also warned both members, because I think they were both involved in goading each other, and it was unnecessary. I'm sorry, Councillor Couros. I think that you have both been behaving in a way that's below the level of dignity that I expect from you. So we're moving the entire of 9.4, which is 1 to 8, and that's seconded by Councillor Snape. Is there any debate about this matter? Councillor Davis.
There are 3 reasons why I won't be supporting this budget. There is a complete lack of vision by this council. The increased car parking costs cripple our economic recovery, and we are abandoning our community groups. For our city to thrive, it is up to us as a council to set out a vision of what our council area will look like in the coming years over the long term. We need to be very clear about what our priorities are in the short and long term, and this budget absolutely does not do that. This budget paints no vision for our city, and it gives no certainty to our residents and our business owners about where we will be investing funding into the future. We are investing huge amounts of money for detailed design for projects which haven't been committed to the long-term financial plan. Huge amounts of money that may never actually progress. There is also, from this council, no long-term vision in alternative ways to raise our revenue, and for that I've talked at length, and I'm disappointed that we haven't been able to consider other ways that this council might be able to raise revenue without charging an increase of 10% for our residential owners and significantly for our business owners as well. I think that the abandonment of community infrastructure is incredibly disappointing, and it sends a clear message that we don't care about our community groups. We have known about the 21 West project since we were sworn in, and perhaps even before. We've had hundreds of signatures from our community calling for council to support their endeavours, not to commit funding necessarily, but to support them in achieving a new facility for their members, which has tens of thousands of visitors every year. Instead, what this council is doing is placing state government funding in jeopardy, and it places the future of the club in jeopardy as well. So if you're a community group, the signal here is from council that we will wrap you up in bureaucracy and we will starve you out. Whether you play sport at Park 21 West or anywhere in this city, I implore you to participate in this consultation and let your voices known. In summary, there are so many reasons why we should be opposing this budget tonight. Outdoor dining fees, no long-term planning, no long-term financial plan that we're committed to, a lack of transparency over council valuations with an increase of 10% for residential, with no real understanding of how that's actually going to impact our bottom line in this budget. These are all the reasons why I don't support this budget. And the fact that at the mere mention by the Lord Mayor that King William Street needs an upgrade, $33 million is then included in this budget. And then on a workshop, the idea that we don't want trolleys in the central market, which would enable that site to be activated, is then ripped out of this budget at a workshop without a decision from this council. I have extreme concern for how this budget was prepared, and hopefully ratepayers will be able to correct our mistakes in the consultation. For if they don't, I have serious concerns for the future of the City of Adelaide.
I have to respond to Councillor Davis's tirade, well-prepared tirade about the budget for political purposes, in my view. The problem we've got in this council is that the previous councils have left us with some very difficult decisions. We have got people in our community who want a community centre, who want to walk down a footpath without falling over falling over a hole or a loose paver. We want people to be able to feel very excited about walking down their main street of their city because it looks nice and it's well maintained. We want people to be able to ride bikes in well-supported and safe places. We want people to be able, our residents want us to be able to protect and defend the parklands and not just tick off on any proposal that's put in the parklands. Councillor Davis is also being extremely dishonest, in my view, for saying that the things he has about Park 21, because we've only just come from a council meeting where we discussed this at length and all agreed that we need to relook at our policy in relation to what gets approved. And we did talk about having wriggle room and going back and discussing that proposal with the people who proposed it. So don't make political points when we've actually got a real and important issue here. The real shocking shame of this budget is that we've had to do this stuff because previous councils have played the populist role, have said things that people might want to hear in the short term without understanding that will rip the guts out of our budget and our ability to make this city look good and be a good place to live. So I'm defending this budget and saying this is a good budget because we're in budget repair. And isn't it a shocking indictment on previous councils to say that we're in a process where we have to repair the budget before we can even start looking at doing the things that we really need to do? And unless this budget is repaired, our residents and our businesses will continue to have a city they feel embarrassed about and that will not serve their needs as that they should have by living in the city, the things they want in their communities. So let's play politics around this. We've had lots and lots of discussion. Let's talk about budget repair and don't spread falsehoods in order to make political points.
Thank you, Councillor Siebentrit. And Councillor Ho next.
I will be supporting the motion, but I also wanted to just note a couple of Councillor Davis's comments that I also support. So we do need to update and revise our long-term financial plan. I do believe that we need to identify alternate revenue methods, and Councillor Davis, you and I have had some, I think, positive discussions on that. My personal view is that we can support this budget, and then also continue to work on it, because budget repair is not a one-hit wonder. Budget repair takes concerted, continued work, and it is work that I don't believe will get done this term around. It's going to take continued work into the next, looking at next budget as well. So while I support the need for those items, I also believe that we can support this budget and continue to work on those other elements. One point that I did want to make a note of here, and council members will have heard me talk previously around Park 21 West.
Councillor Davis, could you stay seated, please?
I just want to reflect on some of the discussion we had in our previous Finance and Governance Committee that I think is relevant here. And the observation is that council members across the board, I believe, are very supportive of community sport. I was fortunate enough to run out for the Seabox, who played out of the Parklands. I played very poorly, but used the Parklands as part of that, and also actually played a game or two at Park 21 West around the site there. I don't believe in what we're putting forward here we are at all talking about no work's been supported at Park 21 West. What we're suggesting is that there's not support at this stage for detailed design. But what I've also heard from council members is that in our support of community support and active, healthy communities, that we will need to look to resolve the underlying policy matters. I think that was, when that was discussed previously, there were a lot of nods around the room. There is some work to be done there, so we can make sure that facilities that are in need of upgrades do receive those upgrades. The community definitely needs that, and I believe that we'll get support for that if we have the right policy in place. And I also heard previously discussion that we will look for ways to help the club to repair the poor state of some of the buildings. So I believe we can continue to work on some of the issues that Councillor Davis flagged, but in doing that through supporting this budget, and also believe we will continue to see support for community sport through supporting this budget, and that's why I'll be supporting it.
Lord Mayor, firstly, I have a small variation in part one, just another additional dot, which I think like admin has got it already, is in terms of the choices in the Adelaide Central Market.
Can we have a second of that? Councillor Moon? Actually, I'm not sure if I can, so let's move forward. I think that you... Could you just allow me to seek advice on that matter? Why don't we have somebody else second it then, so that you're not at risk?
Mary, can you? Oh, Harry, can you?
What do you think?
Yeah, go for it.
My view is if it's so marginal, you might be safer to withdraw your chair on this matter. Is it marginal? I'm unable to get clear advice. I'm sorry? For reasons I can't quite follow, this is a general conflict as opposed to my conflict, which was material. So you may stay.
Well, Lord Mayor, it is very straightforward.
It's a general conflict, so could I have a seconder? Councillor Noon, is there a risk in that? Yes, there is. We think there's a risk, Councillor Noon. I would rather you didn't second it. I'm sorry. I just want to protect you. Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Look, Lord Mayor, I mean, I think this is very straightforward, and members have been discussed this on the 6th of May over the weekend to talk about this. I was very uncomfortable that this item has been removed without a council decision, so it is the time we bring it back, because it is seriously, it's a very important item. It is very important for the shoppers who actually shopping in the Adelaide Central Market. Lord Mayor, I don't need to talk much about this. I just got a few questions to ask. And the first question is, can I have some undertaking from administration that in terms of the $15 million for Guja Street, that so after the master plan is done, So in another 3 budgets, that money is secure. That funding is secure for the whole street.
So can we just take the clarification of several items? The trolleys, I think, are part of the strategy for the redevelopment to get people moving across the road. And it was justified on the basis that it was to get to nudge people into wanting to walk farther to parking. So I think this is an important measure to add back into the budget.
And also the
next question is the capital, whether 15 million in the future will follow. I think that's for us to decide, isn't it? And the timing, because I think from the committee earlier there was a commitment that there would be a scheduling and...
because that was in the committee, so in council meeting, I want to have such undertaking that
can we have
to be
the
confirmed by
undertaking
administration, therefore I know how to move on.
Can you scroll down, please? Up, sorry.
Let's go up.
Up. Whoops. So here we are with the Guja Street Revitalisation Project, which is allocating 500,000 for...
500,000 for the master plan.
A forward commitment of $15 million. I think the point here was that previously there was only 1 year capital works programs, and we're trying to move into a rolling schedule so that we don't have to decide each budget which streets go ahead. So this is lining them up. Is that the correct understanding? I think it's lining up so that it may not be the following year, but possibly in 25 or 26 when the work's ready, but there'll be some work funded in renewal as opposed to new projects. Is that the right understanding?
Through you, Lord Mayor, I'd say in part that's correct. What we will need to do is undertake the design. We will be coming back to council all parts of the process, and we will indicate the staging of when the most appropriate time will be to implement. Naturally, there may be some early works that we can do, which may be associated in and around the central market itself. But again, we will be building to budget, and that budget is $15 million.
All right. And yeah, Lord Mayor, just asking whether or not, can you roll up a bit? Sorry, the screen, my apologies. No, up. Yeah, like this will do. Is it possible to have item 1 separate as all the other dots on the screen? I'd like to take it in parts.
I'm sorry, I'm just confused.
Yeah, because like the item 1 reads, at the end of item 1, it reads, at midnight Sunday, 18 June 2023, subject to the following changes. So I want to have the changes in one part, and so item 1 in the other part.
Just to clarify how we're going to get to the end of this.
I know.
Can you go back to your amendment and deal with that first?
So this is very straightforward.
With the rest.
Okay. Well, let's do with this first. Then I don't need to speak. It's very straightforward. Just ask the members to support it.
Sorry, can I have a question? Yes. Sorry, I just would like to know, has there been any consultation about the introduction of trolleys in the central market?
This is a decision for ACMA. We haven't been consulted.
On the 6th of May, when we were presented with this, we actually put a question mark on it. We didn't actually write it off. And at the end of the day, I actually raised this at the ACMA board meeting last week. I got more information. I was going to try and get some information to forward to the councillors so that you would actually be more au fait with what the trolleys. The issue was for me was, would people actually souvenir them? I was actually advised that they actually have a credit card facility on them. We were talking about how we could even link that with homelessness. At the end of the day, because the car parking's been reduced and there's car parking all around the shop now, I think that this is a really good thing to introduce for the markets, especially over the next couple of years, because people will be having to cart their goods to car parks that are further afield rather than just upstairs, so to speak. So I do support this.
Thank you. I think there hasn't been a public consultation, if that's what you mean. But this is a decision by the ACMA board as a way of remediating the problems with the parking. Is that correct?
Through you, Lord Mayor, this has been a matter that's been debated constantly with the ECMO board, based on, first of all, that moving away from small basket shopping to accommodate other people, also to get people across the road into Andrews U Park as well. So ECMO are actually in favour of shopping trolleys. Now, how they look, how they feel will be part of the project, but they certainly are in favour of shopping trolleys.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I don't know if it was discussed because a lot of things are being said here. Are we including the wayfinder for the car park in this?
I don't know where the wayfinder is.
Well, it has requested in the budget that we were given at the May 16th workshop that the Central Market ACMA was seeking funding for the trolley bays, which was the reason why that they needed those was because it helps support the community in regards to the extra car park that we have across the road. But they also requested the wayfinder for the current existing car park, in which they help the customers that come to the Central Market to find extra spaces, which are very difficult to find. And it was about $500,000 within the budget.
I don't think the $500,000 for a wayfinder is in the budget, but can I seek advice?
It's not in the budget, but it was in the preliminary one on the 16th of March. It was in the budget then.
Well, I think that we have not finally landed on the $500,000 wayfinding.
So, right.
Deputy Lord Mayor, question?
Yes, just a question, Lord Mayor. Could I ask the administration if this proposal, subject to the amendment from Councillor Ho, was in the budget papers and has been withdrawn at some stage in the process? Why was it withdrawn?
I think it was withdrawn when we had our workshop. It was not supported by, I know Councillor Davis wasn't there, but I think most other people were there. And it was not supported by the consensus on that occasion.
Can I have a question? Your Worship, are workshops decision-making bodies?
No, but we were getting a feeling about what was necessary, and we were talking about how we would develop the budget. So they weren't decisions. We're making the decision now. But there was advice from that workshop.
I'm happy to take the councillor through what happened at the workshops. Perhaps after the meeting.
There was no decision, but there was a lack of support for that item.
I supported
it. Well, I supported it, but it was a consensus. As I keep telling people, you can't have everything you want. You sometimes have to go with a consensus.
My question, Lord Mayor, is though, are we now, if we take this to the vote, are we voting to the amendment?
We are only voting for the amendment, which is in red. I think there is a groundswell of support for this. I feel the mood of the meeting is going to vote for this, so I think we should put it now before we move away from that groundswell. All those in favour of the amendment? All those against? That is carried. Division. Thank you. Question to ask. Division? No, let's we call division. It's going to be a long night, I'm afraid, by my standards. Let's have a division.
Members, a division has been called. Please stand in favour in relation to the amendment that is on your screen in red.
Councillor Elliott, Councillor Ho, Councillor Couros, Councillor Noon, Councillor Davis, Councillor Siebentritt, Councillor Snape, Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
So now that becomes incorporated into the motion, and can I just say we can only have one more amendment, so if you would like to incorporate whatever else you want to change, we might be able to manage one amendment.
Is asking you to take it in part of an amendment or not?
No, I'd be very happy to take it in parts. I think that's fair.
So, Lord Mayor, are we now speaking to the motion or?
Well, this motion has been carried, so could we
I'd like to make a further amendment.
Can I just make sure? Sorry, I apologise. It now becomes incorporated into the general motion, and we have not had a motion.
Yes, I move the motion.
Deputy Lord Mayor and Councillor Snake. I apologise.
Lord Mayor, I'm sure you meant to ask, are you asking the mover and the seconder for approval to take it in parts?
Yes, please.
No, I think we'd rather the en bloc is fine. Thanks.
So Councillor Giles, I think you're unable to move another amendment. He spoke to the motion. Did he not? So in that case,
I'll make the amendment.
I'm sorry, Councillor, I can't hear you.
I'm happy to move an amendment.
You've seconded the original.
I haven't spoken to it though. Oh, bugger, sorry.
I'm sorry, it's badly managed there. There's no chance of that amendment. But this is a draft. It's going to go out to consultation, and there will be another bite of the cherry at some stage. So, Deputy Lord Mayor?
Oh, look, you were asking me to sum up, Lord Mayor?
No. I thought you wanted to speak. Councillor Noon.
He sent an amendment to this motion earlier today. Or earlier this afternoon. But I could not actually move it because there is a conflict.
So,
Well, in that case, I don't think you can be a shadow mover of something you have a conflict in.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a conflict because it wasn't clear.
We don't know if she has a conflict until we can see the motion.
Sorry?
So is that the one?
I sent it to a few people.
Can I suggest that you sent a series of dot points without saying what they were related to?
Yes, no, it was. I've got it here, actually. I've got the email that says below a few dot points that both Janet and I want to add to the recommendation referring to the AIDA budget. And then they were the dot points.
So can I just say that I can't accept this motion. The last part refers to Renewal SA. I think that's not a body that we would ever give money to.
Sorry, that's
Renewal
a typo.
Adelaide.
Yes.
Renewal Adelaide.
I think it's Renew Adelaide.
Yes.
Renew without an AL.
It's Renew Adelaide.
And could you just explain what you think adequately funded means?
Well, I'm aware that Renew Adelaide has actually asked for increased funding. I'm not aware exactly of how much that is. However, I am aware of how much Business Events Adelaide is asking for, and they're just wanting their funding reinstated. That was actually reduced post-COVID.
I don't think
sorry,
it's,
not post-COVID,
I don't
pre-COVID.
think it's a good idea to have adequately funded. It's an open-ended clause that is, I think, not acceptable.
Sufficiently?
No, I think that if you're dealing with a budget, you need numbers, and we can't pluck them from the air if we don't know the facts.
Well, that's fine. I tried to get those numbers before tonight, so I'm quite happy to take that one out. But at the end of the day, or administration could actually help.
So let me just read the rest of them. So Business Events Adelaide, are you on that board?
I am, and that's why I'm just talking to this in general.
I really don't think this is appropriate.
I did ask before, and there was there was actually a question.
Councillor, I'm trying to protect you from yourself.
It's actually up to the member to determine their own conflicts, not the chair or anyone else.
I'm trying to protect her from herself.
No, I did ask. I actually asked.
She's confident, let her move it.
please administration help out here? Governance?
Business Events Adelaide, I'm concerned that this is increasing the funding to them on a motion.
This is only reinstating what they actually had before COVID. Should be pre-COVID. This is part, I believe, of the AIDA $8 million funding.
However, I think we're moving towards an amendment putting $250,000 somewhere. So
it's actually.
Through you, Lord Mayor. The conflict arises, we talked about this before, as being a material conflict. Councillor Noon is a board member of the Business Events Adelaide, and had this not been, if it was included as the budget as a whole, there wouldn't be a conflict, but because it's being isolated, that I believe that there is a general conflict. Material conflict.
There is?
That's the best advice we have at the moment. Councillor Ho.
Sorry, try not be the pain. Lord Mayor, can I have an amendment on the whole thing? I like to defer the budget.
Can I just clarify what's happening to this amendment first?
Well, she can't move it, right?
It's been seconded, and I think it will lapse from
Yeah.
seconder.
Yep.
So this lapses, and there is a suggestion that Councillor Moon has a conflict. So this has lapsed for the want of seconder. Now, Councillor Ho, you have the floor.
I want to move a deferral for 2 weeks for this budget. I mean, look, Lord Mayor, looking at like, put it this way, we only get it on Wednesday.
Can I second that?
I don't know what he's moving, I'm sorry.
Deferral for 2 weeks, not a lot.
Defer the whole of the budget?
Yes, for 2 weeks, Lord Mayor. Sorry.
On an amendment.
I think you've already moved one amendment.
But that was a variation.
The same problem, Simon.
I'm a generous woman, not that generous.
Okay, all right.
I'm happy to give leave to. I'm happy to vote that leave for Councillor Ho to speak again.
No, I don't think we can do that. Councillor Couros.
I would like to move a deferral.
A deferral of the entire.
I would like to move a deferral of the business plan and budget for further work to be done with council. For further work to be done and budget considerations added. That the business plan and budget to be deferred until next council meeting.
Can I ask if there's a seconder?
You can't.
I can. I'll hold it.
It's a formal motion.
Be deferred for 1 month.
Put it now. All those in favour?
Wait, what?
Hang on.
The deferral. It's a formal motion.
Yeah, can we debate it? It's plain and
Isn't this an amendment?
No, it's an amendment. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Councillor, it's a formal
Yeah,
motion,
yeah,
so
yeah,
there's
yeah.
no debate on it.
No.
So.
We are being asked to vote on deferring the whole budget.
Yes.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, there's so much conversation. I'm just trying to understand. Am I moving this motion?
You are moving it.
Oh, great. Okay.
But there's no debate.
Why is there no debate?
Yeah. I can ask for a seconder, but there is supposed to be no debate.
You asked for a seconder, but you've asked for no debate.
I know, unfortunately.
Well, that feels like kind of like a gag, Lord Mayor. I would like to speak to it, please.
I'm sorry? I think it's a formal motion.
I can't speak to my own motion.
Life is unfair, councillor. You can't always do what you want.
Well, then I won't move it. I'll withdraw it.
So you won't move it. Can I suggest that the way you can deal with this is to vote against the budget, which I think you'll do anyway. Thank you. No, the Lord Mayor did not. The Deputy Lord Mayor did not agree to the taking it in parts. Therefore, he moved the motion, and we must take it en bloc. So, unless there is, Councillor, yes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, with all these conversations, can I just make one thing clear? Whether if you support the budget or not, that the administration have put an immense amount of work and effort into it, and just because certain councillors don't agree with it, that's not to discourage or I guess not acknowledge the work that's that administration have put into this budget. I want to make that very clear. I won't be supporting the budget, purely because when budgets are handed down from any level of government, Lord Mayor, generally, I guess, state government and federal government, the taxpayer will pick it up and look inside it and say, what's in it for me? And so in this case, the draft budget, as media have reported over the past couple of weeks, residents and ratepayers have picked it up and said, what's in it for me? And the businesses and the stakeholder groups, peak bodies, have picked it up. And I've had feedback from some of those who have essentially said, you guys are increasing fees and charges, not necessarily CPI in some cases. And a good example of that is the outdoor dining fee that's being brought back. So you're essentially slapping us with a fee, not easing it, not looking at a slow transition in terms of introducing it as a 25% or a 50% rate, a very slow, gradual rate. No, it's we're essentially hitting them with the fee as it was. That's one thing, but also what really surprises me is the AIDA budget, the Economic Development Agency funding that's been stripped and readjusted. It's a crucial time now for us as a capital city council. And Lord Mayor, all the other surrounding councils are doing this in terms of focusing on their economic development. And here we are as a capital city council, we're looking at our own economic development agency and we're saying, nah, we're not sure whether if we want to fund you for this. And so we're going to take that out. And the motion clearly specifies that. So if businesses, stakeholders, anything and everything that's related to economic development, all of that aside, if you're an owner-occupier, because of the revaluation, you're also getting hit. So I guess residents, ratepayers, businesses, they'll be picking up this budget, reading some recent media headlines saying, you know what, I'm not sure that there is much in it for me, and so I'm not sure that I'll be happy with that. Anyway, let's send this off to consultation. Let's see what comes back, because I'm actually genuinely curious to see what sort of feedback we get.
Can I just seek clarification, because two numbers have just popped onto the screen. Was that a rounding error that's been unrounded?
Through the Lord Mayor, the change to the borrowings is a consequence of the addition of the 130,000 for the trolleys.
Thank you for that clarification. There are always consequences when we alter the recommendations. Councillor Kouros.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I thank you to Councillor Abraham-Zadeh, because I absolutely 100% agree with him. I think this is not budget repair. This is actually policy making. And we have to be very clear that we're taking out to the public policy making. We're taking some things away, we're adding some things in. And the way I'm looking at this now is that we're taking a budget out to the public to consult on, and we haven't received our full valuations back yet. We haven't been able to we won't be able to discuss, maybe through the consultation it will come in, where the valuations may come in at a time for them to consider. But I really do not want to take a half-baked budget out to the public. I'd rather take out a budget that I can actually speak to, I can actually speak with my ratepayers in detail. I can understand the implications. I know what their increases are going to be, and I know that in my hand and heart what I'm actually voting for. Quite frankly, at the moment, how I'm feeling and the way that everyone is throwing these amendments, that I don't think that we actually really know the implications of our budget. We do not have our long-term financial plan, and if we talk about being responsible, we're actually being irresponsible. I don't think we're giving the right information to our ratepayers right now. That's why I would prefer a deferral. I prefer for us to wait for these valuations to come, which I'm told is only about 2 weeks away. Legislatively, we don't have to put this in until August, which I'm not suggesting that will be the case, but we still have got plenty of time to consider a budget in which I believe there is more cuts than what there is for the benefit of the community. If you look at it overall, we are not really doing our community any justice if we cannot speak clearly on a budget without having the full facts and figures. I don't know whether my community in North Adelaide are going to be hit the hardest. Ranges could be anything up to 10%. And we know the market's moved. And we know these rates are going to go up really high. And yes, there have been decisions made in past council. Most of my decisions have been made related to COVID. And I can only speak for myself. I cannot speak beyond the council after that. I do not know why their decisions were to not increase the rate in the dollar then. I don't know what their thinking were. But my thinking last term of council was all COVID related. It was hard. It was really hard. But we managed to get through it and we delivered a surplus budget to this council. So we have to look that... And as Councillor Abrahamzadeh has said, we have scaled back on AIDA. I want to know, I want to hear from the board what this means for them. We have got a responsibility to our community, and we have a responsibility to ensuring that we can create a thriving community. What do these mean, and what does it mean for not having the wayfinder in this budget? It was in the paperwork on the 16th of March. We did not have decisions made at that meeting. That was the budget that was presented to us. It should have been presented to the council. It should have been voted on. It should have been discussed. Yet we discussed it at a workshop on a Saturday where people have prior commitments, and that we are not really being fully informed in what more has been cut from this budget. I don't feel comfortable presenting this to consultation. I don't feel comfortable telling my ratepayers that this will save the city.
Thank you, Councillor. I should point out that we've had this 10th year in which we have had a frozen rate in the dollar. This is the 10th year, and this year there will still be a frozen rate in the dollar according to this budget. And so there has been a significant period of flat income to the council, and I think the post-COVID budget repair does reflect that there were difficult years recently in the last 3 or 4. Thank you, Councillor.
I just have a question, Your Worship. What has been the increased revenue from growth to this council by new builds over the last 8 years?
I've been shown that documentation many times, but can I have it again, please? We've put it at about 1% a year. Yeah. We've said it's 1% each year, but it's exceeded that in the recent 4 years, I think.
Thank you, through the chair. I think that was shared yesterday. If you just hold on a minute, Councillor, and continue with the meeting, Lord Mayor, we'll track that information down for you. Oh, Mr. Sedgman has it. Thank you, Michael. So you answer. Mr. Sedgman, thank you.
Through the Lord Mayor, in relation to growth, 2012-13 indicated a growth around new developments can't fully quantify it, but it's in the order of 3%. That grew 13-14, around 4 to 5%. 14-15 was a significant growth year with significant developments, and that was in the order of 7%, and that has accumulated on a steady path since. That information was provided at a workshop on the 4th of March and was represented last night at the special committee of council.
I think that we can't keep answering your questions, Councillor Davis, because we do know you haven't turned up at all the briefing sessions, and these numbers have been aired frequently in
I
previous
just wanted
meetings.
to, yeah, look, I apologise for not turning up, but I just wanted to make sure that the public knew about that the City of Adelaide had continued income every single year, in some years 7% from growth, and that previous councils had accommodated for that.
Councillor Siebentrit. I'm sorry, Councillor Siebentrit's already spoken to this motion. I apologise. The only people who can now speak are Elliott and Councillors Elliott or Noon, and then we have to sum up and put to the vote. I'm afraid you have. Councillor Noon.
I just want to make a comment that I'm really surprised that we're making any decisions on the AIDA budget whilst there's 2 reviews happening on that authority. I just don't think that it's a good idea, because it could be very different. So anyway, just thought I'd make that comment.
Thank you. And Councillor Siebentrit has spoken before.
There were questions, though. I had 2 questions for administration. There wasn't...
I think you can have a question.
A question, okay. I thought some of the other councillors had made some valid points around information that's needed. So just a clarification is, when will the valuation information be made available? I know we have covered this in the previous Finance and Governance Committee meeting, but it is important that information is available. Can we clarify when that will happen?
We had the figures given to us about office space, commercial and residential as the interim data, but do we have any more information?
Through the Lord Mayor, the update that was provided at the CEO briefing last night was that we've received a preliminary data set that is subject to quality and exception testing and finalisation of new development assessment data. There's clearly some further work required over the coming week as we move to finalise our overall position regarding the 23-24 valuations, and advice will be provided through the Office of the CEO as soon as that information is available.
And the state budget will be another 3 weeks, I think, so the fees and charges that are laid down by state government will come in then. A question, and then I think we'll put it to the vote.
Question to administration deadline. What will cost us if we have a 2 weeks deferral? A question.
I don't think you can defer everything continually, but eventually you have to make a decision.
But Lord Mayor, we only have the paper on Wednesday. I mean, this is the 5th budget I'm looking at, and I have never been so rushed to make a decision like this.
Yes, and I'm summing up, Lord Mayor, and speaking for the first time. Look, Lord Mayor, I've listened to a great many of the comments, and I can't remember the wayfaring matter which was raised on the 16th of March, but it does sound good, and had Councillor Couros raised it in any of the 12 or so intervening meetings, we may have discussed it further. Look, I actually was present on the last occasion when the Council revalued rates in 2019. And no one was advised of what that increase would be. Everybody learned what the revaluation would be and therefore what their rates would be when they received their rates notice. There is no difference between now and then, except on this occasion we're telling ratepayers that the average increase for residents is around 10%, and for commercial real estate it's somewhere between 3 and 5%, depending on the nature of the operation. That is much more information than was previously provided.
Could I just correct it? They'll be capped at 10%, so it's not around 10%, it will be, the maximum will be 10%.
Well, no, the advice, sorry, I beg to differ, Lord Mayor, but our advice from the administration is that the average increase will be about 10.2%. However, all rate increases for residences and commercial properties will be capped at 10%. Lord Mayor, look, I think I need to apologise. I was actually a member of the council which deferred increases in rates, consistently holding the rate in the dollar and consistently deferring valuations or revaluations that would bring additional revenue to this council. I did so, like Councillor Kouros did, because we were in the middle of a pandemic, and we did many things to assist commercial and residential ratepayers, including in the current year allocating $3 million to a Reignite Adelaide promotion. We also provided rate rebates to businesses. They simply applied and they were given amounts of money up to about $1,000 on average. We also deferred outdoor dining, reimposing fees, because we were concerned that in the COVID environment, restaurants, hospitality generally wouldn't survive if it was limited on the number of people it could have indoors, and therefore we encouraged hospitality to expand outdoors. Now, thank God, the pandemic is over. We are returning to more normal times. And after having supported business and residential ratepayers for many, many years through waiving fees, such as for outdoor dining, such as freezing parking fees since 2019, we are now imposing a very, very modest increase to each of those things. Now, I do understand that some people are outraged that having had a freeze for some... May I have a minute more, Lord Mayor? I've not spoken. Thank you. I know that some people are outraged that we are raising, for example, in some instances, parking fees by 10 cents, and at weekends increasing the parking fee for 3 hours of parking from $2.60 to $5. I understand that that might be difficult for them to sell to their ratepayers, but I think it's important also to sell to the ratepayers of the city that this city has been supportive throughout the whole of the COVID pandemic. And we are now moving to, as the Lord Mayor describes it, a period of budget repair. We are reinstating our finances and delivering a surplus, not for the sake of delivering a surplus, but because the administration tells us this is the amount of surplus we need in order to service debt that will buy infrastructure for our city. And if I can suggest to you all to move to page 20 and page 21 of the budget, there is a comprehensive list of infrastructure projects. Moreover, we are delivering on our main streets. At last, we are delivering. Now, I do ask members to support this. It does represent a step forward, a return to normality, and I think our ratepayers will accept that times are changing.
Thank you. Can I ask that we take this en bloc and that we now vote on recommendations 1 to 8 for item 9.4. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. A division has been called.
Members, a division have been called. Please stand in favour of the motion.
Councillor Elliott, Councillor Noon, Councillor Siebentreut, Councillor Snape, Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Giles.
George Duncan Memorial, a 51st anniversary of the death of Dr. Duncan by the River Torrens, organised by the students at the University of Adelaide. I was the only one that attended the coronation of King Charles II and Queen Camilla at Government House, a celebratory party where much hilarity and joy was spread amongst the royalists. I was a panellist at the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry, FACCI, an executive women's event. The Legacy Torch Relay came to the Town Hall, celebrating the centenary of Legacy and the impact they've had on defence industry relatives. Long-serving City of Adelaide volunteers were honoured with certificates as part of National Volunteers Week. And I attended the Grote Street Business Precinct networking event with many members of council. I also attended a Catherine House gala and went to a fabulous event at Pinky Flat, the Indofest official opening. I met the director of ESCOSA, who, as you know, will be leading an inquiry into our finances in the next year or so. That's a mechanism by which our investment in infrastructure and capital is monitored and checked against benchmarks. And this was our preliminary meeting. I also had lunch with Noel Pearson before a talk at the Town Hall and learnt more about the issues as the voice is being debated. So could I ask that someone move my report, moved by Councillor Ho, seconded by Councillor Noon. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, members. Next, we have reports from council members. We have a list of activities and functions and a summary of councillors in attendance. We also should have some reports from councillors. Councillor Giles?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to give a quick report about an amazingly effective and creative activity organised by the City South Precinct Group this last weekend called Vino and Vibes, of which I attended along with other councillors and many, many local people. It was a great activity where in the south of the city a number of venues had live music and wine tasting, and it attracted people from outside of the area. In fact, as I was ordering a wine at Cafe Troppo, there was a bunch of people who had come into town to see the football from the country, had heard about it and were having a wonderful time walking around and spending their money in our venues in the south. And I'd like to thank the Precinct Group for managing to do this on their piddling budget that they get by just goodwill and organising. I'd also like to... no, that's it. That would do.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other? Councillor Ho.
Lord Mayor, rather a comment rather than a report. And indeed, tonight already got a few members mentioned to this item. Because, like, put it this way, Lord Mayor, and members, please. I have heard that, members start to criticise the former council a number of times tonight. And I understand that, look, I fully understand that if you would like to do it during the election mode, but we are already in a new council, and I urge members, please be mindful of the wording you use, and please be mindful of your behaviours. Let's not forget, the last 4 years, 3 years were in a global pandemic, and there's a lot of things that we have never dealt with before. There was a lot of risk we have to take. For every members and for all these staff in the administration come to a meeting, come to work every day. They are taking a risk. They are taking a risk of their life. They all have a family to look after, but they're still coming here to their job. And let's not forget, the last couple of years, we, the council, have worked very hard to provide extraordinary support to our communities. Not just the business community, but also the residents. And besides, at the end, we deliver a surplus budget to this council. Therefore, we are able to work on the budget and prepare something for the new start. And I really like to urge members, behave yourself and use the right words.
So I'll take that as a personal explanation, but say I endorse Councillor Ho's comments. I think that it's conciliatory and sensible for us not to reflect on decisions from the past. And that's why I always talk about post-COVID budget repair and do not cast any doubts on the goodwill of those that went before us. Councillor Davis, do you have a report, or are you going to make another some sort of explanation about your behaviour?
What would you prefer?
Well, I expect
pick your own, choose your own adventure. Look, Your Worship, I would just like to thank you very much for allowing me to represent you at the Dam Busters event, which celebrated 80 years from quite a massive historic achievement. I obviously was pretending to be you, and I fell short. But it was a massive thing when 19 Lancaster bombers attempted to destroy key German targets, and it was a pleasure to represent you and remember those who gave their lives in such a daring feat.
Thank you for that activity. So if I might suggest that someone would move noting council and member activities, noting the summary of council members' meeting attendance, and notes the reports from Councillor Giles and Councillor Davis. Moved by Councillor Davis, seconded by Councillor Snape. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, members. Questions on notice, number 12. No questions on notice? We might have questions without notice, yes. Any more questions without notice? No questions? In that case, we'll move on.
Sorry, question without notice.
Oh, I wasn't fast enough, was I?
Oh, no. Well, I was too slow. Lord Mayor, I'd like to just ask whether we could have an explanation of how councillors could be involved in Reconciliation Week activities next week.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that, but maybe Mr. Haridis could.
Thank you, and through the chair. With regard to the question, we're happy to come back to councillors with content on activities and their ability to an opportunity to engage with the agenda.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My motion is on the Library of Things, and I will seek a seconder.
Seconded by Councillor Elliott.
Wonderful. So I'll keep this pretty brief, as it's quite explanatory, self-explanatory, and I am just after a report on the possibility of us getting our very own City of Adelaide Library of Things for residents and ratepayers within the City of Adelaide. So a Library of Things is kind of like a library of books, but it's specifically for things, especially for perhaps new students coming to the area, or people in small apartments, just people who might not have particular items. Such things include sewing machines, I think gardening tools, things of the like, and they can borrow these items from the Library of Things, use them at home or in their gardens, and then return them for the next person to use. And it's also a good place for people to drop off and donate items. So it's really a kind of centre of or a location of community and activity. I don't seek, millions of dollars to create such thing. I just want to investigate, take the first step, and then perhaps down the line revisit it. So I do encourage, because it is just seeking a report, I do encourage my fellow councillors to support. And with that, I'll commend it to a room. Thank you.
So unless you have an alternate view, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you, members. And another motion from Councillor Noon, a review of grants programs.
Okay, much has been discussed and reported on this topic, so I'm not going to go over old ground. But, sorry? Oh, did we? Yeah, thank you. I believe that what occurred, read the grant motion, that was originally, I'll remind everyone, that was originally passed by absolutely everybody with the exception of Councillor Davis, forced me to look into the process, criteria and reporting back to Council, and it revealed many questions and hence the motion. I did speak myself to the Lord Mayor the next day because I wasn't actually comfortable. It wasn't because I was pressured due to media media responses. And certainly I can't remember any sort of evil corporation. I do think it was also the reporting that we actually received. For example, we actually had one successful grant, which was barista training. And when I looked into that barista training was the first initiative to improve outcomes for young autistic people. None of us would have seen that initially in the reports. So at the end of the day, I do think that this highlighted to me that we actually really need a review of how we go about this, and hence the motion.
I know you're looking for an opposing view, Lord Mayor, for people to stand up, but I do agree for us having these review. However, we can't please everybody. That's the difficult part, and I look forward to seeing this presented to us, to see how the actual process the administration have to go through, and I'm sure it's a difficult one, to choose which grant should have more success over the other. I would assume that it will be a difficult process to choose one from, but I look forward to the review.
I'm aware of the late hour and we have been going for quite some time, so I'll be very, very brief. I really appreciate this motion being put up because it was the topic that we discussed at the time of the grants being accepted, or the grant recommendations being accepted, and I think this is a fantastic way to avoid some past missteps. However, I would like to make a comment, and I think the way that the previous grants applications was handled terribly, not just in this chamber but outside the chamber, more so towards the discussion where it was a case of pitting all these groups, these community groups, against each other. It was incredibly disappointing to hear on the radio a particular radio host with quite a considerable audience saying, why are we giving money for barista training? Why are we giving money to women for period products? And it shows a complete misunderstanding of what those community impact grants are supposed to do. Period poverty is a factor that stops many young women from going to school. If you don't have access to period products and you are experiencing your menstrual cycle, forgive my it doesn't happen to me, so I don't know all the terminology. You can be prevented from going to school, and that can last a week, and that really does affect the education outcomes for young women. Autistic people have the highest unemployment rates in our community in Australia, even more so than Indigenous people, factoring in regional and metropolitan variations. So the groups that we were looking at to give the community grants to had incredible merit, and when a lot of us were looking at what we were wanting to prioritise in that, we had to weigh up some very, very complex groups with different forms of disadvantage, and the way that was played out in the media of pitting all these groups against each other and saying that we were abetting that, when we were looking at who are the organisations and what access to other forms of resources do they have, I think it was a complete mischaracterisation of the way that this the subject was handled in the chamber and the committee.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Look, I recall vividly the circumstances, the meetings during which the guidelines were changed in the last term of council. And I must say at that time I had a concern, and I have this concern today, and I would ask the administration, who I'm assuming it's the administration who is being asked to conduct the review, to consider carefully the broadening of the criteria for strategic partnership grants, which allowed for the purchase of capital projects or capital items for public companies and private companies. That was a feature of that policy which I thought was quite unusual, and it is something I think that deserves to be reassessed, particularly in the context of some of the stories we've heard about, for example, Tupperware being provided to a multinational bank and their staff. Those kinds of things, whether in fact they have occurred, are certainly being discussed, and I think an examination of that particular aspect of the program would be very valuable.
I think that we'll just allow Councillor Davis to speak and then we'll put it to the vote. I think everyone's in furious agreement.
We are in
I
furious...
sense the feeling in the room.
I don't know. I don't think I'm in agreement, I'll vote for it, because I think that the guidelines that we have in place and the way that these recommendations come through to committee and then to council are well considered by the administration. I mean, if you, like, I spent the time to go through and read all the comments from the administration about why some grants were accepted and why some weren't. And what happened in the chamber was a complete reversal of the excellent work that the administration have done under our current grants programs. Now, the reason that convinced you to drop the reconciliation activities by the Adelaide Crows Foundation was because that the Adelaide Crows earned lots and lots of money and they should fund it themselves, rather than actually understanding the difference between charity and a football club.
Lord Mayor, I move that the motion be put.
I haven't finished yet. You can move the motion afterwards.
It's a procedural motion.
So I'm being gagged again and holding this council accountable. It's not the first time I've been gagged by Councillor Snape.
Move to agenda item 16, which is the exclusion clause. And could I ask if... Oh, I'm sorry, I missed the motions without notice. I'm thinking of dinner. Any motions without notice?
I could move a motion regarding the review that we've in relation to additional information that we could request in a review.
I'm sorry.
Regarding budget. Can we just go back to the last motion? I'm undoing my gag, Your Worship.
I don't think you can do that.
Oh no, I'm just moving a motion.
Without notice.
Without notice. That the review of the Community Impact and Strategic Partnerships grant program and my motion will be that we move a workshop prior to it coming to committee. Happy to speak to it. So look, so happy to speak to this motion. So the reason why this council was disgraced in the media was because we didn't follow our internal processes and procedures. This workshop that I'm suggesting here will encourage councillors to have all the information that we need prior to making these decisions. Now, I set out to council that
Lord Mayor, I move that the motion be put.
I'm happy to withdraw the motion.
Can I just draw your attention to the fact this is not a matter of urgency, and when the review comes back, we can decide to have a workshop.
All right, I'm happy to put that as a motion on notice, Your Worship.
I think that will actually make the process smoother, because we can make that decision when we see the review. So I've rejected your motion, and in the absence of any other motions without notice, I'll move on to item 16, which is the exclusions clause. Could I ask if a member would be prepared to move the exclusion clause? This relates to the Audit and Risk Committee report. Moved by Councillor Siebentrit, seconded by Councillor Giles. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Could I ask members of the public to vacate the gallery?